Yo Splinter fam, we have a new card joining the meta, and guess what? It isn't that good. I've watched what other creators have said in the Splinterlands space like Infidel and Aftersound, but they're not telling you the full details on the card. Their videos are really good, but the thing is they're more focused on how many copies we're getting of the card, and they don't really go into detail on like how good it is and how it's going to change the meta at all. But you know what we do here, we talk about how good cards are and how bad cards are. So let's get into the video, but before that, like the video if you're happy with getting some airdrop cards, and comment below what you think of the card itself. Oh, don't forget to sub, as all our subscribers get packs in their daily chests. Don't quote me on that. With all that said, let's get into the video. Cue the intro. I know we haven't made a video like this in a while, but you know how we do it. We talk about the pros and the cons of cards, but as I'm not a big fan of this card, we're going to start with the cons. Starting off, it only really gets good from gold and up. In gold and diamond it gets some good abilities, but before that it's kind of really bad. Once it gets to gold, it actually gets some self-heal, which is really good. And then in diamond it gets amplified, which is actually kind of amazing considering it's got magic reflect and return fire. The problem is Dr. Blight is so meta right now, and affliction can really just destroy this card. Even though Dr. Blight is a bit of a magic card, but as soon as that affliction gets onto him, he's got no kind of like defense at all, and he's just gonna die. And the thing is, you can't really like think a card's amazing if it's not good from like bronze all the way up to diamond. And like obviously you can feel like, oh, in silver it gets some great abilities, but with this card it really doesn't, and you kind of need it to be in gold to be any good. And obviously once it gets to max level, you can kind of say it's a pretty good card considering it's got amplifier and it kind of like amplifies its own abilities. But the thing is, if you're not in diamond, this card's going to be pretty much unusable. My second point is, it's going to lose in the mirror match. Thing is with blue, blue's so fast, it's a very fast splinter. Think about diamond shark and things like that. But this card has 1 speed. So it's going to get hit so many times, and it might not even get the blood dust out. And the thing is, blood dust is going to be one of its key abilities, and if it doesn't kill anything, what's it going to do? And you can say to yourself, oh, the blood dust can trigger on like the return fire or the magic reflect. But when you're playing blue, you're not really playing them types of cards. You're playing a lot of sneak, opportunity. Think about Pellicle Bandit, think about Deep Lurker, and think about Possibilist as well. Blue is a very like physical heavy team, so it's not going to be really good in the mirror match. Even though I've touched on it a little bit already, but it has no survivability. Even though it's got tank kill in gold, but it's so slow, and affliction can ruin it, monsters with poison can ruin it, and loads of abilities and that monsters can really just destroy him really. And you don't really, the thing is, people are so focused on, oh, it has magic reflect and return fire, but what if they don't use them type of damage? What if they go for a more physical team? When you think about a tank, you kind of think about like some protections of some kind. You think about void, shield, but this monster don't have any of that at all. All it has is some like return fire and some magic reflect. But the thing is, like I keep on saying over and over again, what if they don't use that type of damage? Then your monster's going to be sitting there and it's going to die so quickly. And it's a big 11 mana for a tank that really can't do much. And if you think about blue, they have some amazing tanks. It has one of the best tanks in the game, Diamond Shark. So for me, this card's not going to be played much. One big thing about this monster is it has Bloodlust. We used to have only Galactus cards that have Bloodlust, yeah, but then we got Grum. And now slowly we're getting more monsters that have Bloodlust, because obviously we have Jared the Scar. But Jared's really great when he can attack for the bank line, and he has piercing and stuff like that can allow him to like obviously get some Bloodlust. But with this card, people are like, oh okay, it has magic reflect, it has return fire, so it could trigger the Bloodlust, but it's so slow. So without them abilities, it's not going to do it itself. It's not going to actually attack a monster and actually trigger its Bloodlust, because it's so slow. And for me, if you have a monster that has Bloodlust, you want to be able to trigger it, and I don't think this monster is going to do it too much. And if you think about like any other 11 mana monster, they do so much. They're such amazing cards. Any monster that costs like 10 mana plus are amazing. Think about Kron, think about Cornelius, think about all these monsters, think about Longtail. These monsters do so much here for themselves, and they have some form of protections, or they can attack from the bank line and do other things. But with this monster, it's kind of like a sitting duck, and people will think, oh okay, I'll just save it for 99 mana. But when it's 99 mana, you're not going to play this card at all. When you think about Coastal Sentry, which is the go-to reach card when it comes to Possibilist, it's not going to replace this. She-Rex not going to replace Coastal Sentry when it comes to the Possibilist play, because that monster does so much damage without having to worry about, okay, let me make sure it gets hit with some magic or some range. But Coastal Sentry is such a better card. Like, there's so many better cards in blue because blue is such an amazing splinter in itself. I don't think She-Rex is going to get played too much. And with 99 mana, it's such a big battle. There's so many different abilities, damage flying all over the place. And for me, She-Rex not going to have a place there. I just want to end this little con segment I have, this little rant with. Diamond Shark is so good. He is such a monster. Think about all them games here where he just trampled through teams and stuff like that. And the thing is, when a magic damage hits him, he suddenly gets stronger and faster. Like, he's such a better tank all round. It's like the same argument I used to have here when it was like Forgotten One or Grum. Which one was better? And Forgotten One was always better. And personally, I think it's going to be the same situation here where what's going to be better? She-Rex or Diamond Shark? Diamond Shark's always going to be the better choice. I know you may think I've already bashed the monster enough here, but I'm going to finish it off by telling you the worst war types you could possibly play this monster in. Starting off, we've got no healing, as like I said to you, the only protection it has currently is the healing. And if it gets afflicted, it's absolutely screwed. So in a war type where it can't heal, it's going to be very bad, as it's taking in all that damage. It's got no protection, it's got no void, no shields, no nothing. Even though it's returning the damage, it's not going to actually survive long enough for the Bloodlust to go out. And you're literally hoping that Bloodlust is going to keep it alive. The second one's going to be Enrage, as it's a slow monster. And you don't want any other monster to get quicker, and then you may have the possible chance of actually missing the attack you need for the Bloodlust to go out. Because can you imagine, like, you've got 1 life left, and it's your turn to attack, and you miss because of the enraged speed. And because of the shipwreck is so slow and it missed, you'd be so annoyed. You'd be like, oh my god. The last war type is going to be Maximizer, as shipwreck actually has quite a lot of health, and you'll be giving your opponent all that health. And it'd be so hard for him to actually trigger his Bloodlust. Even though he's returning all the damage, the monsters can end up killing him before it happens. And considering the monster's so focused on it actually getting Bloodlust to kind of like keep it in the game and getting stronger and actually gaining some speed, you don't want your opponents to be so hard to kill. The thing is, these are just like some of the war types I feel like it's going to be bad in, as we haven't played it in any of the games yet, and so like there could be more ones that I might not be thinking of, but the no healing one is definitely a biggie for me. But you never know what's going to happen once it comes into the meta. But now we've spoken about all the cons of the card, let's talk about some of the pros, as there's actually some benefits this monster has. Just as there's cons, there's going to be pros. So let's get into the pros. Even though I bashed the monster quite a lot, yeah, there's definitely some benefits of it, but for me, the cons outweigh the pros in quite a lot, if I'm honest. Starting off, I've talked about the Bloodlust on the monster a lot, but this monster can actually trigger its Bloodlust without actually attacking. And for me, it might be the only way it's going to trigger Bloodlust, as it's got 1 speed, it could miss, and you never know. But it being able to like trigger Bloodlust by your opponent attacking is definitely a great benefit to your team. And if you've got it at max level and you're playing in Diamond and Champion, you get the Amplify as well. So you could do an extra bit of damage, yeah, without doing anything. It's just sitting there as a big meat target. But keeping on the theme of Bloodlust, if you have your team kind of organized, yeah, and kind of like focused in other areas, it can actually trigger it quite often, and it could definitely keep on getting stronger and stronger, and might actually become a big problem in the game. And if you think about it, if it's attacking and triggering its Bloodlust, and as it's getting attacked, it's triggering its Bloodlust, it can just keep getting stronger and stronger. But in my mind, yeah, like, it's the only benefit of the monster, really. That's what I mean. Everyone's talking about the Return Fire and the Magic Reflect, but in my mind, them abilities are only really good because of the Bloodlust. And the final pro for this monster is definitely going to be, at max level, it's such a monster, as it's kind of like self-sufficient, as it's got Magic Reflect, it's got Return Fire, and it's got Amplify as well. So it's increasing the damage that you're returning to your opponent, which is great. It having Amplify allows you to have other monsters on the board, and you don't necessarily have to worry about having an Amplify monster as well. But these are kind of like the only pros I can think of the monster currently, as we haven't got it in practice, we're not using it, we're not kind of like putting teams together and stuff like that. But because it's such a high mana monster, I'm not really a big fan of it, because the abilities are great and all, but if it gets afflicted, it's gonna die. But there's definitely some pros as I've just listed. But don't worry, in the future, once we have the card out, I'll make a more in-depth guide about the monster, as I thought it's definitely unique, but you never know. Some of the abilities may change once it fully comes out, as if you read on the actual text of the monster, it says it can change at any point. I say at any point, I mean like before it comes out, as sometimes they change monsters' abilities, as we saw with the soulbound cards. But if they don't, this monster is going to be such a monster at max level, but you bronze and silver players, you're not going to have such a beast. We've definitely brought up some great aspects of the monster, but now it's time to bring up some rule types that it can actually become quite a beast in. The first rule type is going to be like slashed into two, as in my mind the snipe rule type and the scatter rule type are pretty much like the same thing, even though like either one attacks a different target. But if you put it in like one of the backline positions, or if you're playing Prosperous for example, you put it in the reach position, then it can actually absorb some like range and magic damage hits from like the scatter shot or snipes, and as it gets hit, it'll be returning all the damage. And then once you get into first position, you never know how many times the Bloodlust might have triggered. The second rule type is going to be Amplify, as it don't get that ability to max level, and not everyone plays a Diamond Champion, but them abilities are very strong, and if you can amplify the damage, it's going to be even stronger. And if you have stronger damage, that means more Bloodlust. And if you have more Bloodlust, that means it gets stronger. And the stronger it gets, the better it gets. And if it doesn't get afflicted, it can actually become a big problem. The last rule type is going to be all the melee can attack from anywhere, so like the super sneak, the opportunity one, and obviously the melee can attack from anywhere. As if this monster is not the vocal target of the team, it can just be getting Bloodlust out. As a lot of like the Bloodlust monsters that kind of flourish in these rule types, like Jared and Grum, so this one's definitely going to fall into that group. But these are just the rule types that I can think of currently right now, as we don't have the card in practice. So once we get the card in the game and start playing with it and making teams, then it might change, we might add some more, we might take some away, but for now these are definitely going to be the standout rule types for the card. I'm really happy with finally getting some new cards in the game, but I don't think C-Ret's going to change the game much or really affect the meta at all. But all we can do is hope that the next airdrop cards are just a little bit better. But that's it from us for today. So if you haven't already, like the video if you like the card, and comment below what you think about C-Ret. And don't forget what I said, all our subscribers get packs in their daily chest. But remember, don't quote me on that. And remember, be a shark in this world, not a whale. And we're going to see you guys next time.